everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of Writing Light. My name is Matthew Wayne Selznick. Now, Writing Light is a weekly report on my progress as I write the first draft of my second novel, Light of the Outsider, a kind of fantasy thriller, if you will. Every week, as I write the first draft in the months of February, March, and April 2011, I'll be reporting to you on how things have gone in the previous week. I'll read a scene, or a page, or a paragraph, or a passage that I'm particularly proud of, or that illustrates a particular point from the previous week's writing. And we'll talk a little bit about the process of writing this book. This week, being the first week that I wrote in earnest, I did 7,177 words, according to the book here. I wrote about 6 hours over the course of Monday through today, Saturday, averaging about just under 1,200 words per hour. Now that's great. I'm pleased about that to no end, because in order to write about 80,000 words, which I think is a good target for this novel, over the next 3 months, I need to hit about just under 900 words per day. So I'm managing to get 300 words over my quota every single day, which is awesome. One of the reasons that I think I've kind of hit the ground running with this book is that I'm very familiar with the story. Light of the Outsider has its origins in a short story that I wrote many years ago, and the short story was your basic fantasy adventure romp, you know, kind of a rescue tale. And the novel is still, at its core, about a rescue. Over the years, I realized that short story, there was a lot more there, that it fit into the larger, more kind of epic story, if you will, that I wanted to tell in my fantasy setting, the Shaper's world. This is basically a story that's going to, you know, it's one of those pan-generational tales that small things lead to bigger things, until finally it's you know, of practically cosmic proportions later. This first book and the short story that inspired it are much more small-scale, little-stage aspects of the story. So I'm very familiar, as I mentioned, with the work. That being said, I didn't just leap into writing. I did some preparation over the month of January, wherein I actually outlined the first, let's say the first 2/3, 1/2 to 2/3 of the book, scene by scene, beat by beat. Even though, again, I have a fully written synopsis of this book that I wrote a couple of years ago, and the story is very clear in my head, but I wanted to go over every scene, at least until I really got to the point in the last week of January where I was like, you know what, it's time to write. This was useful. Even though I know the story so well, outlining those scenes, outlining those beats in the first 2/3 of the book, enabled me to see places where there wasn't enough conflict, where a scene maybe wasn't driving the story forward, and even cooler, enabled me to see places where there were themes and threads running through the book that maybe I hadn't seen at first. And all of that enabled me to really lay a groundwork to tell a story that ultimately is deeper than maybe I first envisioned. I hear a lot from people in different writing podcasts and in different books and articles and blog posts and whatnot, the argument between people who outline and people who free write, just let it go and find out what happens as they're writing. Why not do both? Now, I mentioned I only outlined the first 2/3 of the book I'm not sure when I finish actually writing first draft of those outline scenes, I'm not sure that when I get to the end of the outline if I will stop and outline the rest, or if I'll just roll and quote-unquote, air quotes, free write the rest. We'll see how it goes. There's a third option, of course. Outline, right through the outline, free write to the end, and then go back and make an outline of the part that you free wrote and see if you've missed anything. See if there's anything that could be added in, that could accentuate what you're trying to tell. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. You'll find out how it goes as we go through February, March, and April. I'm curious, the writers out there who are watching this, not so much whether you are an outliner or a free writer, but what you find more useful. Maybe you do both, like me. Maybe you free write the whole book and then go back and outline and then find your holes. Maybe you outline the whole thing and then discover more once you've written it out. I think ultimately it all results in the same amount of time spent writing. It's just a matter of whether you're front-loading some of that thought or thinking along the way, perhaps. Anyway, I want to hear from you about that and your thoughts on that. All of the ways to comment on Writing Light you'll see at the very end, so please do. I mentioned that one of the things I want to do with every episode of Writing Light is read a bit from the previous week's work. I think since the book has just begun, since we've just begun with this, I think I want to read the first line and the first paragraph and talk a little bit about first lines. Now, I'm not the first person to say that the first line of a novel or a short story has to serve a purpose. Even though I kind of know this purpose, I wrote it down just so I would remember for you guys. I think the first line of a book, or I should say I agree with the thought that the first line of a book should set up the conflict, should set up a question, and of course should encourage people to continue reading. Now, some people say that with a novel you've got more than a first line, you've got a first page or even a first chapter. And with a short story, maybe you just have that first line. I don't know. I think even with a novel, you have the first line, maybe the first paragraph to grab people. I didn't always have a first line for this book. I won't say that it held me back from the writing, but once I had that first line, things started to fall into place almost on a subconscious level. It helped me understand more deeply, on a more emotional level, what this book was about. So, here, of course, in rough first draft form, is the first line. The invitation was a trap. Now, I think, in my own humble opinion, that this first line answers to all the things that a first line should be. It sets up conflict. Now, there's a trap. Usually, when there's a trap involved, whoever's falling into that trap or in danger of falling into that trap is not going to go into that trap without some conflict, without without a fight. It sets up a question, obviously. Who is falling into the trap? What is the nature of the trap? And a mystery of sorts. There's an invitation that's a trap. Invitations are usually pleasant things to receive, pleasant things to follow up on. You know, you're invited to something. That's great. Oh, it's a trap. Hello. What does that mean? Hopefully that that does the final thing that a first line is supposed to do, and that's keep you reading. The first paragraph should, I think, build on that, and again, press you to keep reading, make you want to go on through the first page, through the first scene, through the first chapter, and then buy that baby and read the whole book. So here is the entire first paragraph. The invitation was a trap. Sot did his best not to think about it, but the syrupy Essa was as cheap as he could buy, and it was giving his thoughts a hard, worrisome edge. He could tell from Lama's small and careful movements and the way she swallowed thickly before speaking that she was troubled as well. The only one who didn't seem concerned was Vadi. That was good. It was her ankle in the snare. So now we know that there are two people, probably the people who invited, who are in on the secret, that the invitation is a trap, and a third person, Vadi, who has no clue. She is the invited, and she's going to fall into this trap. Who are these people? What is their relationship? Why did Sot and Lama invite Vadi into this situation that is a trap? It makes me want to keep reading. So I think that's I'm going to say it. I'm proud of that first line. I think it keeps you going. More importantly for me, and what I like to do, which is write books about people, this first line sets up an interpersonal situation. Yes, this is a fantasy novel. Yes, this is set in a fantastic world that is not our own. But the most important thing is what happens to the people in that world. The scenery might be beautiful, the monsters might be scary, the magic might be fascinating, but to me, if I'm reading a fantasy and I don't give a damn about the people, well, any book really, if I don't give a damn about the people, and if they're not compelling and interesting, and it's not worth reading. So hopefully I'm creating something where you will care about these people. Even if you don't like all of them, at least you're interested in what's going to happen to them. So there we are. There's the first line, the first paragraph of the first draft of Light of the Outsider. Will there be tweaking? Will there be editing? Oh, you better believe it. But that's how things got started on Monday night when I started writing. Writers, what do you think about first lines? Do you worry about first lines when you're sitting down to write? Is it something that you have in your head, or is it something that you go back and write once you've written a piece of the story, or maybe all of the story? Is it that important to you? I know there's some people out there who can't even proceed with their story until they have their first line. Again, it wasn't that way for me, but it certainly helped me. It helped solidify the heart of this tale, and in my mind, that's a big part of it, if not the main part of any novel, any story. It's got to have some heart. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for this first episode of Writing Light, or Writing Light of the Outsider. As soon as my face disappears, you will see all the myriad ways you can comment on this episode, leave feedback. Please take advantage of all and any of those ways. I really want this to become a dialogue between myself and you, the lovely viewer. And we'll do this again next Saturday. My name is Matthew Wayne Selznick. Thank you so much for watching Writing Light. Bye-bye.